iconic comedian Bill Cosby is staying silent about decades-old allegations from a number of women who claim that the TV legend sexually assaulted them. They also claim that he drugged them. Joining us now is clinical psychologist and author Dr. Anthony Napoleon. Doctor, this is a very difficult story for a number of reasons. One, the image that Bill Cosby has built during his long career, and the fact that these rape allegations have been dormant for so long. Right now, Cosby is staying silent, and that may be fueling speculation that there's some validity to these allegations. How do you read all of this?
Well, as an expert witness and a forensic consultant, I spend a lot of time in courtrooms. And I am reminded every time I walk into a courtroom that there is an opportunity to cross-examine your accusers. Your accusers have the right to bring in expert witnesses, forensic consultants, and present their case. And the defendant has the opportunity, in fact, a constitutional right, to confront his accusers and to do all of those things that test the validity. Whenever I have testified in court, both sides on an issue, whether it's prosecution or defense, had ample opportunity to question me and to explore in some detail with challenging questions the validity and veracity of my comments. Mr. Cosby is being denied those constitutional rights because none of these women have seen fit to persuade a district attorney to bring charges against Mr. Cosby in the criminal arena, nor have any of them chosen to file a civil action. So what we see is a wholesale character assassination of the man using the media to facilitate a sniping of his character without the opportunity to cross-examine. And that's a concern to me.
Do you think that his silence on this is helping to fuel some of the speculation, along with the fact that there was a 2006 case that was settled, and neither side is discussing that? Is that helping to fuel some of the speculation in all of this?
Mr. Cosby is in the unenviable position of damned if he does and damned if he does not. If he chooses to try the case in the media, he is not afforded the right to put his accusers under oath and to cross-examine them. On the other hand, if he remains silent, then the character assassination continues unabated. And with regard to the 2006 settlement, many of our clients, because our practice is located in Southern California, the home of the West Coast media branches of Hollywood, we have high-profile individuals who often choose to settle a case to avoid the publicity, because whether you're innocent or not, what occurs is you are going to suffer the consequences of any publicity.
You raise a good point about high-profile individuals, celebrities, who can either be a target of people who want to either gain monetarily or perhaps impose some sort of public jury upon them that it would somehow hurt their reputation. But it can also be difficult for people to make allegations against well-known individuals because of their celebrity status. And I think it raises a very difficult question about how to go about raising allegations when you have a high-profile person. Should we naturally come at these with a skeptical viewpoint, or should we ask for more information to be heard?
I think the alleged victims have failed to persuade a district attorney to file criminal charges against Mr. Cosby, and none of them have seen fit, while the statute of limitation had not run, to file a civil action against a man who is worth tens, if not hundreds of millions of dollars. Therefore, absent the courtroom being involved, where Mr. Cosby can face his accusers and have a free and open encounter, what the alleged victims have chosen to do, for whatever reason, to try the case in the media. And none of them are put under oath. None of them are cross-examined. I saw a wonderful interview with Mr. Don Lemon of CNN. Don is a very good interviewer. I like Don, but Don is not a lawyer. And Don is not skilled at cross-examination. And he could not force the alleged victims to answer any questions that would naturally occur. You don't have people like myself coming into court. Let me remind you of something, if I may. Some of these allegations go back to the Vietnam War era, when Richard Nixon was president, before there was a three-point shot in the NBA, before there was one NFL. And we know that memory deteriorates over time. All of us will attest to that, our own intuitive sense of this, our own personal experience. But perhaps more importantly, every single alleged victim talked about being drugged. And looking at the drugs that are used, roofies, for example, Rohypnol, GHB, and in the 1960s, ketamine, are all amnesia-producing drugs. Therefore, not only are we talking about memories that have had to withstand 50 years in some instances of deterioration and suggestibility, the actual encoding of the events are acknowledged right out of the mouth of the alleged victims that they were given a drug that we know biologically disrupts the ability to encode memories. So these are the kinds of issues that Mr. Cosby is damned if he does and damned if he does not address. But what I find particularly troubling is the wholesale character assassination of a person who is essentially being denied his right to confront his accusers in a court of law. You can you can confront your accusers, but if it's not in a court of law, you cannot enforce any question answering. You cannot make objections. You can't cross-examine. So that's my concern.
Mm-hmm. Do you think that given that I believe we're now up to 5 women who have detailed their account of the alleged assaults, there are as many as a dozen who have offered their support. Many of the stories have a familiar ring. Does that, albeit absent of any proof or evidence that would likely be introduced if there were to be a court case on this, does the number of women that have come forward lend any credibility to the story and the fact that their accounts are similar?
Well, that is a very interesting question, because what we know from the research is that there is a contagion effect, and there is something called the herd instinct in man, and that there are any number of scientific studies that look at suggestibility of recall. And it is not strange at all. And I think a lot of people who don't work in the court system find it very, very strange that you will have coordinated stories, and therefore you see the coordination and you think to yourself, well, there must be something there. Let me remind you of something that's a fascinating data point. As of today, there have been 316 men who were prosecuted in a court of law and found guilty of a capital crime who have been freed because of DNA evidence. In 16% of those cases of men who were sentenced to death but later freed because they were innocent, 16% confessed, and in many cases at the appellate level, there were multiple witnesses telling the same story. Oh, yes, this is what happened. This is how it happened. And this is when it occurred, and this is the modus operandi. And we human beings are not very reliable. However, with all of that said, we are respectful, and I am respectful of anyone who is a victim. However, our court system, which has a lot of flaws, is still the best in the world at getting at the truth. And absent that, we're simply going to be assassinating a man's character without affording him the God-given right to confront in a court of law his accusers.
Dr. Napoleon, we'll have to leave it there. Thank you very much for sharing your perspective on this. We really appreciate it.